revenue collection for the financial year 2023-2024. Let's begin with some feedback from what you are saying this morning. And we'd like to invite more feedback on X at K24 TV. The hashtag is New Dawn. You can also speak to us on our SMS feedback line 21222. Joan, is there some feedback? All right, and let's begin with the Savula Ken, who says we should be told in black and white that it's more debt paying for Kenyans after the latest Moody's credit downgrade. Global rating agencies' negative rating means that the country will pay more to borrow domestically and internationally. And we have to discuss that because then borrowing it may be in the offing in light of the current dilemma. And Lillian Ray says Kenya will end up like Ghana. Ghana was hailed as Africa's rising star. See now how they are grappling with its worst financial crisis in decades. That's why we're advocating for responsible governance, fiscal prudence, and accountability in shaping the nation's future. Rogers Morara says, until we deal with corruption and wastage, we must freeze all borrowing and raise revenue by slashing expenditure. Mumbi Joan says, Michelle, they take loans and steal. So not borrowing or getting loans is a win for the country. Right, some Kenyans are saying the downgrade could be a good thing to stop the country from borrowing. Medeva Laura says, let's repatriate stolen funds stashed in offshore accounts and reclaim public resources stolen by corrupt government officials. Could that be the solution? Perhaps. Peter Ngeno says, we don't have a choice. Austerity versus taxation is the only way we pay our debt. No other way. Kula na kulipa. But let's audit the debt and hold people accountable. All right, so we do invite more feedback. The hashtag is New Dawn. Let me begin with you, Dr. Kamau, and just on the solutions the Kenyans seem to be raising. And so some were saying, if it is so difficult to raise revenue this year, why don't we repatriate stolen funds stashed in offshore accounts, make sure we reclaim property that has been grabbed as a result of corruption. Is that a tenable way or direction for the government in revenue mobilization?
Yes, Michelle, it is, but in the long run, it is not an easy thing to do. So we need to think what to do about in the short term. And basically what to do in the short term, maybe we might need to really actualize the Privatization Act, where we need to privatize some of the public institutions that have always been supported by the taxpayer. For instance, KPA, we have even most public universities, they are still struggling to keep their accounting records in order. And you wonder why a public university with the students paying school fees, they are still not able to be financially sustainable. So those public institutions that keep getting funding from the government, they need to be privatized. And I welcome the move by the president the other day, where he said that about 47 parastatals, they need to be merged or to be scrapped out so that we reduce the wage bill. But ironically, what I didn't get from the president is he said a good thing, but by saying that good thing, then he watered down the whole point that he was that he wanted to address. That the employees in those parastatals will be migrated to other existing parastatals, and if it is a wage bill that we wanted to deal with, why then transfer? If you felt that they were redundant, maybe they should be. We should create other initiatives that will help employ them, but not again shift them or reallocate them to parastatals that are already adequately staffed. So there's a big problem there. So I foresee in terms of revenue mobilization, again KRA is shooting on its own foot on the issue of ETIMS. Because the ETIMS, when they rolled ETIMS, they had not put proper structures on how it will be enacted from point A up to point Z. Why do I say that? Because like recently, they said that they are excusing the SMEs who generate revenue of less than 1 million from being subjected to e-TIMS.
Right.
And now the question is, for the other taxpayers, it will be very hard for them to really continue purchasing items from the small-scale traders, because the large-scale traders, any other person whose revenue is above 1 million, will be required by KRA to justify every other purchase that he has done by producing an e-TIMS receipt. So if you don't produce an e-TIMS receipt when you are preparing the financial statements for the end of this year, 2020-24, then every other purchase that is not supported by e-TIMS will not be validated by KRA. So actually, at the end of the year, we are likely to have the biggest crisis of all, because KRA will be refusing to accept many purchases and expenses that have been validly incurred by businesses. KRA is saying that you need to really support this expense by an e-TIMS receipt. And for the last maybe about 1 week, e-TIMS have not been working. And KRA actually are pushing that for any person in business, before you sell anything, you need to produce an e-TIMS receipt. So if you are not able to produce an e-TIMS receipt, and you are being told if you sell without producing an e-TIMS receipt, it is illegal and it's a criminal offense. But on the other hand, e-TIMS platform is not working for the last 1 week. So I think KRA, instead of making, they are making 2 steps ahead, but again 4 steps backwards.
Ruth, do you agree? Because these are measures that seem to have worked in revenue collection, the rollout of e-TIMS, for example, and Dr. Kamau raises credible concerns. But when you come even to anti-corruption measures in the last financial year, KRA said it implemented anonymous whistleblowing mechanisms, which led to the recovery of about 4.2 billion shillings in the period under review. Many say that is little compared to the figures that we see on corruption scandals: 5 billion, 10 billion missing, 60 billion. When you talk about privatization, we've talked about, you know, in expanding the e-TIMS cover. What else can the government do to bolster revenue collection in the short term, especially with regard to anti-corruption measures?
Thank you so much. And I think if there is one thing that will not leave KRA, or will always be an egg that will always be on the face of KRA, is corruption. Because we were just talking about the Auditor General's report and the missed target by KRA, especially just from an income tax perspective where e-TIMS is not. And you can see the huge numbers. But what are the issues, Michelle, with KRA? The implementation issues have not been dealt with and are never dealt with going forward. And as we can see right now, the reason why corruption is so much there, because the technocrats at Treasury, by the time they are budgeting, they know that KRA is going to be able to implement. But the corruption issue comes in the picture and it blurs everything. Yet, it makes KRA look so unapologetic to even not meeting its targets, you know. And that is now where we feel like even the legislatures here have failed us, because they're the people on the ground, because they're the people who should be understanding the business temperature and climate and coming back to advice, so that there is a reconciliation between what they are given by the people planning at Treasury. They come reconcile with what is happening on the ground, so that even before it goes to KRA for implementation, even the executive, the president, has the right or can be able to understand what are the issues, and they are amended well in time. And let's just look at the finance bill, for example. Why did it even go to the first reading before contentious issues were addressed? Then, when it comes to corruption and the issue of revenue collection, can we ask ourselves as a country, or I don't know at what level that this happens, to say that why then are we not getting where we were supposed to go? Because I'm sure everything happens strategically, Michelle, and I can tell you that strategically, because everything has been included in terms of like looking at KRA, where are we coming from as an organization? Where are we right now? How well are we going to move forward? And that is simple strategic issues that needs to be relooked at. Then, if those strategic issues are not happening on a day-to-day basis, where are the gaps? Where is everything slipping through? Can we be able to find out? And maybe those are the questions that we don't seem to have been grasping or doing very well. And the problem, the biggest problem right now, Michelle, is the commitment. Where is the commitment? And that's why Gen Zs are coming and saying, you guys, what are you even doing, you know? Because Gen Z, I can tell you, Michelle, they're not interested to go and occupy State House. They're not even willing to come and take his seat. That is not their interest. Gen Zs and everyone else in this country is looking for accountability. And I'll take you back to what you've said, Michelle, even on the issue of commitment of, say, the employment and wage bill surge. This is something that has been happening on government to government over the years. And as we were saying, we can see a whole increase of almost 300 billion to the current budget, something just to cater about wage bill. But in terms of this, the pensionable and full-time employment, that can there be a change of policy so that there can be, for example, what we are saying about even the whole issue about privatization act, so that if somebody is properly redundant, they can be given an option, you know, instead of saying that they are going to be put in other places. The government is not committed to the issues that needs to be dealt with urgently. And one of those issues is revenue collection. We have not seen the commitment and the accountability that needs to be put in place. And actually, we can, at this point, say that whatever is happening with the people planning is really disconnect with what is happening to this country. And if the legislators are in the mix, then we do not know where we are left as common mwananchis.
Honorable Gakuya, and Ruth raises a credible question, because we have the Public Accounts Committee, for example, within the National Assembly, whose role is to oversight expenditure of public funds, among other things, study public audits, and we have many, many audits by the Auditor General and Controller of Budget. Talk to us, the chair of the Trade Committee, on the impact of privatization, as Dr. Kamau brings up, on raising or mobilizing revenue within the short term, and even the austerity measures by President William Ruto to either dissolve or merge state corporations or parastatals that are not performing well.
Thank you, Michelle. And coming to that particular area of concern, let me say, as a nation, we are missing something. Because sometimes you keep pouring money to an institution that's already dead and you are unable to revive it. We have an issue of a case study of our Pride of Africa flight, which Uhuru tried very vigorously to bail out. But at the end of the day, even up to date, it has not been able to be bailed out. Why, as a nation, do we keep on wasting money there? And we have options to either raise it out or sell it out, so that at least you can start. You can close that door and have something afresh and move on. We have institutions that actually has been run by the government, which have done so poorly. We have Intercon Hotel, which is a public facility there. It is dead. With billions of loans at its neck. What are you doing with it? Sell it out. Sell it out. If you are unable now to manage it, instead of closing it, and the debts are still running, and interests are crippling every day and night. We have a lot. Today we have a new KCC. New KCC seems to be working. But you realize, as we speak, for the last 1 year, it has been unable to assist even the farmer at all. It is a company that is competing with other private companies of the same particular industry, and it is dying when the other private ones are flourishing. Then you're asking yourself, you are trying to fund the same new KCC. Last year, we funded out with 1.5 billion Kenya shillings from the government kitty. A factory that is supposed to be making profit. What is doing? What is happening? What's not happening? It tells you the sales that actually are done from of the production. There is something missing, because that money is not being pumped back to where it's supposed to be. But the money is going here somewhere, and we always keep on bailing out from the government kitty. So there are a lot of wastage, and this wastage, unless those doors are closed, because you don't have to have institutions that are dead, and you are still popping money there. And that money is going to waste every single day.
It seems to be, you know, in agreement, Honorable Gakuya, that there's a lot of mismanagement, a lot of corruption, many loopholes. So what then is the role of Parliament in sealing these loopholes and following and calling for accountability? Does the Public Accounts Committee, for example, which I believe the Committee for Trade should be working very closely with, sit and take action against the reports by the Auditor General, or on the reports by the Auditor General? We have one today on page 19 of the Business Daily, raising red flag over missing billions at KRA, many of which, when you take a look at the numbers, may actually have plugged the revenue target deficit by KRA over the last 2-3 financial years.
One, what I can say is that, in fact, these committees are there, but it is important also to understand, Michero, that actually we have various distinguished clusters of work to do. There is work for executive, there is work for registration. And our duty, you know, it is purely to oversight and make recommendations. And once you do those recommendations, the recommendations that are after the Auditor General brings a report to the House, those committees go through the reports, they make recommendations, they table the recommendations to the floor of the House, they are adopted, and who is supposed to do the necessary after that? They recommend this particular agency, do this, do this. Then the implementers are the various. But you cannot say that the failure is the Parliament. The Parliament has executed its job, but the executive have the mandate to implement, because they are the ones who are responsible to control those other agencies that are supposed to implement. How
many times has Parliament called out the executive for failure to implement these
reports? I would say every single committee has its powers to do so, and when there are such failures, it is the prerogative of a certain committee to do so. And I believe they have been doing so.
All right. Ruth, what do you make? And let me just read an excerpt of this report by the Auditor General, raising red flags over missing billions at KRA. And so in that damning report, reveals that the taxman under-collected income tax revenue for the 2022-2023 financial year by about 147 billion shillings. We also have a review of taxpayers' declarations from the iTax system. It reveals that taxpayers, about 1,400 of them, declared a gross turnover of 2.5 trillion under VAT obligations, but only declared a gross turnover of 2 trillion. And so that was an under-declaration of about 490 billion shillings. And so the Auditor General has recommended that KRA take immediate action, establishing the causes of these inconsistencies and take proper action. Let's talk, Ruth, about the inconsistencies that we've seen within KRA, because even President William Ruto has often expressed his frustration with KRA's failure to reach targets and has asked it to end graft and adopt technology. And we've seen much of that raising target collection. But why are we still not there?
First, if there's one thing that has always been recommended to them is the Auditor General's report. But what we can ask ourselves at this point in time, have these recommendations ever been taken into place? Have they ever been adopted? Have they ever been relooked into, so that first KRA from an audit perspective can find that it has cleared the audit, what we call audit issues, and can it substantiate that these issues are real, or the Auditor General is reacting or not, you know, cannot, there's a disconnect. Those are some of the issues, Michelle. The other thing that has been happening with KRA, even as adoption of technology, and even as we hear that some of the technologies fail, what is the commitment? And as an institution that is so important to this country, especially in the widening of net, the 147 billion you're just mentioning about is only on income tax. And a very specific report on 1,000, you know, 1,000 clients are already being appointed. Then what next? Yeah, is it an area that can be improved? Are you telling me we are that bad in terms of not knowing where we are supposed to be? And can the government give it the spotlight that it needs? It's not even about a matter of putting people or putting measures in place, but as a holistic organization that is being seen to fail this country, you know, as a holistic institution. So what next? What next? Yeah, and is accountability something that is also really considered from such a very important institution as KRA? You know, or are we sitting here, Michelle, and blaming KRA for things that it did not do, and there maybe there's help that it needed and it was impended from other structures of government,
right.
You know, from a political perspective? How is that balance going to happen? Let me tell you, Michelle, right now is the best opportunity this country has been given to take accountability into place, because that has been thrown out of the windows for the very many years. And this is the best opportunity. And we've seen, we have a legislature here, and we have seen, if they do not do what they are supposed to do, then the people, the power of the people is going to come and show them how to do. So this is the best time even to go and do the right thing, not only in KRA, but government holistic. Is the right time to throw actually corruption out of the window. And what I can tell you, Michelle, specifically for this country, we are not anywhere near the Ghana way. We will never go the Ghana way.
Right.
This country is more accountable.
Okay, and many are calling for accountability. We must begin to wind up. Dr. Kamau, your final comments on the austerity measures, and the call is to cut down on recurrent expenditure and focus more on development and where else the funds need to be directed. What are your expectations, even on the austerity measures that you continue to see the government rolling out?
On the austerity measures, actually, first of all, let me say that the 347 billion that the government will not be able to raise, now that the finance bill failed, actually it's a good thing for the private sector, because it means this is the money the private sector would have lost to the public sector, and the private sector now will actually have more purchasing power, because in a situation like this, the failure of finance bill actually forced the government to take the right policy that it should have taken in this kind of a circumstance. Because when there is a deprived liquidity in the market, when there is no enough money that is circulating in the market, actually the government should lower taxes, and that's what the failure of finance bill did by lowering taxes that the government actually was advocating for increment. So basically that's a good thing. We are likely to see a more vibrant private sector, the manufacturing sector. Actually, this year, the year that has just ended, June 30th, manufacturing sector actually paid less taxes than the previous years. It was highly affected by the taxes, by the punitive taxes that were raised in the year 2020 through the finance bill 2023. So I foresee we are likely to go the Ghana way. I'm foreseeing a very oblique future, because last week the government was trying to raise 20 billion through treasury bonds, and they were only successful 3%. They failed 97%.
Wow. Right.
They wanted to raise 20 billion. They were only able to raise 800 million. And in terms of treasury bills, it was a success, because people want to lend to Kenya on a short-term basis, but they are afraid that they don't want to lend in long-term, because they are afraid the government may be unable to repay their loans, because they are struggling to collect revenue that through taxes that should help them repay their loans. Okay,
so those are two different views from economists. Honorable Gakuya, as we wind up, what are your final comments and expectations? And even, the expectations of Kenyans from members of parliament themselves in ensuring accountability in revenue collection?
One, let me say, we have all the required measures to assist in our revenue collection. I don't think that actually there is anything that KRA is missing to assist them from making their work prudent. And if there is, and the parliament is not doing it, they should bring it like tomorrow, so that we can do what is not done. Because they have all tools that are required to have to collect.
All right.
And therefore, they have no reason to say that actually the parliament is failing them from collecting. And my only area is the targets. They must be able to match up with treasury and be sure, because that kind of deficit of a gap of 380 billion from the target is so big to me. But the failure here, we cannot be able to say that we over-targeted, or it is a failure of the collector. There, between the treasury and the KRA, they should sit down and the committee that is designed, that actual oversight system, which is the Committee of Finance, then they can give us a way forward.
Okay.
Then, and finally, in terms of what we call austerity measures, there are many areas of money that we pump. We have money that actually we pump into what we call a niche sector. And that money sometimes is misused because it's not audited.
All right.
That's an area that we should look, and we should be giving them the money that we know that is actual, and the rest of money should go to other sector.
Okay, thank you.
Other monies that we pump to our forces that are necessary. We should also look to that.
Okay, thank you,
because we don't want to have a lot of money stuck somewhere, and that money is just lying there and not assisting Kenyans.
Okay.
So that austerity measures, I am sure that the gap is not too big. It's a gap that we can fill, and we do not require to go extra mileage to borrow more.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Gakuya. We're out of time. That is Honorable James Gakuya. He is the Embakasi North MP and the chair of the Trade Committee of the National Assembly. Also with us in studio are economists Dr. Maina Kamau and Ruth Kinyanjui. Many thanks for watching and following this conversation this morning and engaging with us as well. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good morning.